Yes, hello, welcome back to the Rugby League Forecast podcast. My name is Connor Moran, and today I am going to do a quick review of the NRL trials that were on over the weekend between the Bulldogs and the Cowboys and the Dragons and the Newcastle Knights. First of all, how good was it to just feel and hear the Fox League theme again? You know, I just get the feels when it comes back on because it just means, you know what, football's back. And it's so good. It just the sound of that Fox League theme. Do 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 do, and then it just eases in on Braith and Astor, Cooper Cronk, and Kieran Foran, one of my favourite players of all time. Without the suit on, just the you know the long sleeve shirts, just ready to go, just representing that it's still summer, guys. Relax, we've still got a few weeks to go till kickoff, but it was so good to see. Man, it was just so good. Like having the football back. I know it was trial matches, and the majority of players that played in these two games were players that hadn't played much NRL before, but man, when that theme came on, I had goosebumps. It was so good to have the football back. I'm going to just do a quick review for the trials. I don't want to go in depth too much because at the end of the day, they are trial matches. And I personally have the opinion that you do take plenty away from trials, but those matches, I think that the next 2 weeks, the trials are pretty important to a degree in terms of team selections where players will play in certain positions. But I didn't feel that those trial matches, coaches could take plenty out of those ones, just considering the amount of players that probably will not play first grade this year, respectively. So it is one of those things where you need to analyse the game to an extent, talk about the players that really impressed, but also you can't overthink it, I reckon, at the same time. So, look, let's kick off with the first game, which was the Bulldogs and the Cowboys. The Cowboys winning that 34 points to 30. And I think at one stage it was 28-0 to the Cowboys, and the Bulldogs came back. So pretty unbelievable second half from the Bulldogs. And what really intrigued me about this game was the Cowboys were extremely strong, defensively really, really good. Their goal line defense was really good, considering they had a lot of guys that hadn't played overly much first grade before. And yes, it was a trial, but technically it's an NRL trial, so you've got to respect that. And at the end of the day, I just felt that so many players in that game really stood up. For Heilum Lukey, how good was it to see him score the first try of the season for the Cowboys in that trial? First try of the game, I should say, and I just thought he was absolutely unbelievable. He was so hard to stop. Every time he had the football, there was that offload, and he ran straight. He just, you know, with Heilum Lukey, a few years ago, sometimes he'd always look for a pass or an offload straight away. But what I really appreciated about his game on the weekend was he just fucking ran the ball. He just ran the ball and he ran hard. And when looking at him on the TV screen the other day on Fox League, I noticed that he had built up so much over the last 12 months. So, look, maybe the fact that when players do have season ending injuries, the one benefit is at least it gives their body a break. For example, Cameron Murray, right? Yes, he came back in round 27 against the Roosters last year and played that one game. But, in terms of longevity for their careers, maybe the fact that, you look at Cameron Murray, he's played in the 2021 grand final. I think he's played Origin since 2019, every single series onwards, well, most of them anyway. And, he's put his body through a lot. He's played plenty of final series. And so in the space, I think he made his career debut 2017, 2018, around then. I'm gonna go 2018, and he's now going into his eighth season of NRL. So at the end of the day, Cameron Murray is around about halfway through his career, you'd think. So that's the only positive about a player having a season-ending injury where they're out of the game for 12 months or so is the fact that, you know what, it does give them that opportunity to really put on some muscle, do some work behind the scenes, and also, just maybe they see the game differently, watching it on the sidelines. Maybe they understand more than what they have to work on rather than playing, if that makes sense. I think they see rugby league from a different landscape, from a different from a different view, different point of angle. So I do think there are positives, and I'm looking at Helam Lukey and the way he played on the weekend. Yes, guys, it was a trial, but he was just so good, as I mentioned. That game, Cowboys and the Bulldogs. I'm just going to go through some players that really impressed me. Robert Derby. I sat here 3 weeks ago and did a Cowboys season review of season 2025, and I just wasn't sure what Robert Derby, whether or not he'd be in the first grade squad, especially for Vegas to start the season on the wing. And for me, Robert Derby in that game was really, really good, like really sensational. And the thing about Robert Derby is sometimes he's a bit hot and cold. He can make an error under a high ball. He can make errors, but he was so professional in the way he played the other day. For example, he chased every kick like his life depended on it. And you're looking at it going, all right, maybe there's an attitude change, maybe the experience now. He's had a couple of years of first grade experience in the NRL. Maybe it's starting to finally click that it's now or never for Robert Derby to stay in this first grade side long term at the Cowboys. And, for me, it's not a guarantee that he'd start on the wing going into these trials at all. I thought Braden Burns has put in some pressure on him. And yeah, I think after that game, the way he played, I thought he was absolutely fantastic. For me, if I'm Todd Payton and I watch Robert Derby's game, and sure, he can score tries. He's got late footwork. He's a great player. He's got such great speed and agility and skill. But I think at times he didn't involve himself in games as much as I believed he should have last year. But he really got involved and he did the dirty work, Robert Derby, from the sting. And I just thought he was absolutely fantastic in that game. I thought he was really impressive. And if I'm a Cowboys fan and watching Robert Derby in that game, I'm actually pretty excited. And I really hope that for him, he starts Vegas on the wing. And look, chances are he probably will, but there's no doubt that there is a selection headache where, they've got some pretty good outside backs, Tom Chester, Zach Laybut, that they do have, Murray Talangi. They do have some really good outside backs coming through as well at the Cowboys. But I thought he was really impressive. For me, I think he did enough to cement his spot. There was a play in that game where Jake Clifford put a kick on, and there was no certainty that Robert Derby was going to score, but he chased the kick like his life depended on it. And I didn't see that overly much last year. I think sometimes Robert Derby relied on luck, if I'm to be completely honest, to get him over the line at times. But in that game, watching him really closely, it seemed to me that there was a real attitude adjustment from Robert Derby where he wanted to be involved. He wanted to do the hard yards, the dirty work, take pressure off his teammates. And his attitude, he just looked like a player that didn't want to give up and didn't want to be taken off. He was fantastic. I thought he was really, really good. For me, the best player of this game was Jake Clifford. And obviously there's the headache too of, okay, who's going to play 6 alongside Tom Dearden come Vegas, which is, guys, 19, 20 days away now, just under 3 weeks is Vegas. For me, Jake Clifford was absolutely fantastic in this game. His kicking game, we spoke about their headache with on the 2025 review 3 weeks ago, the selection headache. Do they go Purdue at 6, Clifford at 7? For me, the standout out of those two halves in that game was Jake Clifford. And Purdue, I think he's going to end up being a really good number 6. I really do. But to start the season, I think you've got to go Clifford. Just after that game, I thought the way he directed the team around in that 7 jersey was fantastic. For me, he's an NRL player, Jake Clifford, and I'm really surprised that he doesn't get a spot in the Cowboys side or just in first grade in general every week. And when he comes off contract, I'm surprised there's a lack of interest each time he's off contract. I just think he's a really underrated player, and I thought he played really well. And I get it. Look, a lot of these first graders that have got experience like Helam Lukey, Jake Clifford, they're up against a reserve grade Dogs side. But I don't just look at that. I don't just think, okay, they're dominating because they're up against guys that are not experienced. I'm looking at their attitude. I'm looking at the way their kicking game is. Because at the end of the day, if you're up against a reserve grader or an NRL player, you're still going to have pressure from the defensive line on your kicks and on your kicking game. So I thought Jake Clifford was unbelievable. And I thought he looked really fit too. I thought Zach Laybut was a standout for the Cowboys. And their fullback, now I've got to be honest, I've heard of his name, but I've never seen him play. Their fullback, Mason Barber, fucking hell, what a player. Mate, if Scott Drinkwater ever gets injured, and there was talk about whether or not Jackson Purgey could play fullback or whatnot. I mean, look, that probably would go Jackson Purdue as the next fullback in line to play there because you can move him six centre fullback. But Mason Barber, for me, what a talent. Really, really good player. I know Tom Chester can play fullback as well as he can in the halves and the centres. So they've got some versatility around their players in the back line there. But for me, Mason Barber really showed that he can play NRL. There was a play there where he obviously scored the match sealing try for the Cowboys with about 5 minutes to go. He scored the try that pretty much cemented that they were going to win that game. And it was a bit of individual brilliance with a right foot step and a dummy, and all of a sudden he was through, and he actually looked like a first grader to me. He was a real standout. Every time he had the ball, he looked really dangerous. For the Bulldogs, their first half was pretty shit, but in saying that, you can't take too much out of it. You look at the Cowboys side compared to the Bulldogs, and there were a lot of first graders in that side. Before we get to the Bulldogs, one other player that really impressed me for the Cowboys was Kai O'Donnell. He's played a bit of first grade, I think, only a few games. I've heard of his name for years and years and years, but I haven't overly seen much of him in first grade. But I thought he was really impressive. He scored a try for the Cowboys, but the way he hit holes, the way in which he just ran straight, like Helam Lukey. They just... Yes, they were playing on the edges, but for me, they were playing like they were front rowers. They just fucking marched it up. His post-contact meters were unbelievable, and he was really hard to stop for the Bulldogs' defensive line. So Kai O'Donnell had a lot of aggression in that game on the weekend. Really impressive. For the Bulldogs, Eamon Fitzgibbon, how good was that? When he scored the first try for the Bulldogs, well, his first try of the Bulldogs, the first try came to Justin Matamua. I'll come to him shortly. But Eamon Fitzgibbon was absolutely fantastic. I've got to be honest with you. When I read the team list last week, I didn't actually know that he was Craig Fitzgibbon's son. So for me, I was shocked. And they showed Craig Fitzgibbon, and I think his dad was sitting next to him when he scored his first try of the game, and then he scored another try later in the game. And wow, what a player! What a really, really good player. As I mentioned, guys, earlier in the podcast, when you look at trial matches, you don't just think, oh, he's only doing this because he's up against these players that are reserve graders, and he's only got this ability right now, right in this moment, in this game, because this certain player hasn't got the experience that he's up against or whatnot. Well, I say that's not what trials are about. I reckon if you're a head coach, you're sitting there and you're looking at attitude, you're looking at players that never give up. And for me, he was a player that was just involved. He never gave up, and his attitude was fantastic. He wanted the ball in his hands. He chased every play. He was very good defensively as well in this game, Eamon Fitzgibbon. Justin Matamua, fucking hell, he can play. Now, I think he's only played a handful of games for the West Tigers, I'm pretty sure he came from. But man, he just ran the ball. He just ran the ball, and I really liked him. I thought he was quite dangerous. Quite a small, bigger body. Like, he's not tall, but he just looks like a nugget. He looks like he's really hard to stop. But I feel that when he played, and, the way the Bulldogs came back in that game, sure, they made a lot of replacements, but I reckon at the back end of that first half, that there was a real change in momentum that came on the back of Justin Matamua's first try that maybe gave them confidence. And what I found really interesting at halftime, which was soon after Justin Matamua's try, was Cameron Ciraldo at halftime. He looked fucking filthy. And I think the score was maybe 22 or 28-0, or no, sorry, 28-6 or something like that at halftime. And I get, it's a trial match and they're up a lot, but he was absolutely filthy. He looked really, really angry, and he was sort of barking orders at one point to the players that were there and the players that were about to come on. And he was saying, no, I don't give a fuck who wears a jersey. These are the standards. And, I don't care if you're Stephen Crichton or a player that's never played in a trial match before. These are the standards. And the Bulldogs hadn't met Cameron Ciraldo's standards. And what I found really interesting about Cameron Ciraldo was at the start of the game, there was a pre-game interview with Kieran Foran, Cooper Cronk, and Braithen Astor with Adam O'Brien, and they were talking about what's really impressed you over the pre-season. And you'd think he'd talk about certain players at the club, Stephen Crichton, Matt Burton. You'd think he'd maybe talk about these players with their leadership and what they're doing to raise the standards and the confidence. But the first thing he mentioned was Adam O'Brien as an assistant coach. He said how good he has been for them. I think what I found really interesting in this game too is when the Fox League cameras would show the coach's box of the Bulldogs, it was actually Adam O'Brien that was looking a lot more angry and passionate than Cameron Serrato does. And if I'm a head coach, or if you're just a fan of a club and you're seeing that, you got to respect it. It means Adam O'Brien really fucking cares. And an example of that last year was Des Hasler when the Titans got beaten in Golden Point at Leichhardt Oval, and the players went in the showers, but he hadn't stopped finished speaking and or something around those areas. And Desi Hasler just went fucking off at these players. And at the end of the day, I think everyone knew that Desi Hasler was no longer going to be the coach of the Gold Coast Titans. But the fact that he cared so much to yell at them and he wasn't just like, oh, well, at the end of the day, my job's over. There was a real sense of care that Des Hasler still had at the club, and there was still standards that Des Hasler had. And as a fan, you've got to, or as a player, I guess, you do have to appreciate the passion that coaches have. So there you go. The Cowboys ended up winning that game. Justin Matamua, as I mentioned, he changed the momentum. I thought the Bulldogs were really, really good in that game, in that second half, I should say. But plenty to take out from both sides in that game. I thought both coaches will be pretty happy. Defensively, you're probably not going to expect a really great defensive game with so little first graders in that game. But at the end of the day, really, really impressive. Let's talk about the Dragons and the Knights. I thought the Dragons number 7, Cade Reid, was absolutely fantastic. As I don't need to sit here and talk about him for 5 minutes. We all saw what he did. He was absolutely fucking unbelievable, in my opinion. His first 15 minutes with a try. What a great competitor. He was fast. His kicking game was really, really good. And Shane Flanagan actually said, I think it was in an interview last year, that, he's so fast. He's got a great kicking game, but he doesn't believe he's properly ready yet for first grade. And I question that with Cade Reid and younger halves. You've got Joey Walsh at Manly and on Tinny Large at Manly, and you sort of question, how does a coach because I genuinely do not know. So please leave it in the comments if you have an answer for me. How does a coach, or how does anyone at the club really truly know if a player is ready to play first grade in the halves? Because there's this sense in the NRL now, and ex-players like Phil Gould and people in the media like Gus and, like older players, I remember Sterlo used to talk about it too, is make sure you develop your halves and, give them time before they make their debut. Well, they didn't do that with Brad Fittler. And I know he ended up playing in the centres to start his career in 1989, I think it was. But if you're ready, you're ready, aren't you? Like, some players can handle the pressure. Look at Joseph Suaalii. Sure, he wasn't a half back or 5'8", but, I think he debuted when he was 17, 18 years old. If you're ready, you're ready. And, maybe giving them that experience in first grade. Like, for me, Cade Reid, I think he's 19 years old, from what they said the other night in the commentary box, and I just think he's absolutely fucking unbelievable. Like, for me, I think he did the Dragons no favours, because I can't see how they're going to pick him this year. They've already confirmed Atkinson at 7, and they've got Flanagan at 6, and then they've got like a King Tongia as the backup half. I mean, he'll probably get a go if they get 2 injuries in the halves. But in saying that, it's no guarantee that he'll get a go. And for me, when I say the Dragons, it hasn't done them any favours, I genuinely don't think it has, because he's contracted to the end of 2028, I believe. I just don't think that, like, if there's a club knocking on the door, say for the Titans, if it doesn't work out with Ilias, or say for another club, if it doesn't work out for another player like Canberra, Ethan Sanders, or I know they've got Kobe Black, but, you just don't know. And you never know if it will work out for a certain player, a certain team. Cade Reid will be having clubs knock on the door without a doubt, and he might get uneasy at the Dragons and go, fuck, I don't want to sit in reserve grade for 2 or 3 years when there's an opportunity for me to play first grade. So If I'm Shane Flanagan, I make sure this kid has a go this year. I really do. He was really, really impressive. And I reckon the Dragons would be extremely happy with that, the depth they've got in the halves there. I think he's good enough to at least jab a 14 spot on the bench. He looked really, really good. Trey Mooney, I thought for Newcastle was fucking, God, he looked fit. I thought he was really, really good, which was great to see because my concerns for the Knights are their middles, especially after losing Leo Thompson. But Trey Mooney, I thought he was really sharp in that opening half. He looked really fit. He was making a massive difference in attack when, you know, when they needed someone to make the meters. And I thought he really looked good considering the front row problem, as I mentioned. I thought Setu too had a bit of a hot and cold first half. He made an error in the opening 20 minutes of the game, but then he had that great runaway try off the Newcastle error to score the Dragons' second try of the match. So, Setu too, I thought he looked pretty good. And I think he's around 25, 26 years of age, and they've bought him from the Warriors. He looked really good. So, the Dragons and the Knights, Sandon Smith for me, he threw an amazing pass to James Schiller with minutes to go. Really, it was a fucking phenomenal pass. And I thought his kicking game was really good, Sandon Smith. We all saw that intercept, and then he was caught by Cade Reed. But even then, I know he got caught. I know he dropped the ball, but still it is great to see Sandon Smith have that confidence. And he's fast too. I forgot how fast he was. Thought Fletcher Sharp was looking really, really good in the first half. I thought when I look at Fletcher Sharp, I noticed too, I've written down here in my notebook, he was doing all the little things really well. So for me, giving early ball with his speed has been a huge threat in attack. So what I noticed the other day is every time he'd get the ball from the first receiver, Sandon Smith, or, from Tyson Frizzell, from the lock forward to do a back line, and then they'd find the decoy runner coming in, Fletcher Sharp wrapping around. And then Fletcher Sharp, to me, instead of just fucking, a lot of number sixes take it to the line, then give the ball, but he sort of trusts his fullback or trusts the players on his outside. I mean, if you're Fletcher Sharp and you're going to have players on the back of you such as Dane Gagai, Bradman Best, Dominic Young, Greg Marzu, possibly even fucking, I was going to say Fletcher Sharp may end up on the wing, but for me, it's his speed and the early ball that he can give that can also create a lot of space and more options on the players on his outside as well. He's got this beautiful inside ball pass, and he had a nice combination with Kalen Ponga last year too, with the games that they were able to play together before Fletcher Sharp got injured last year in round 17, I think it was, against the Dolphins in Perth. After watching Fletcher Sharp that night, I'm sorry, but for me, in my opinion, I reckon he's just got to be, he's got to be put at 7. I think they'll start Sandon Smith at 7 because I thought Smith had a really good game, and I reckon they'll go Dylan Brown at 6. But I'm pretty sure Justin Holbrook has already come out on record saying, no, Fletcher Sharp will not be on the wing. He'll be involved in the side. I think he's too good to be put into the centres or the wing. I think he really needs to be the number 7. He may not be a traditional 7, but I reckon he's got the skill, the ability, the attitude, and that fucking Newcastle Knights mindset of just mental toughness to make sure he will find a way to get it done to lead this side around. I think you put him at 7, Brown at 6, Sandon Smith, to be honest, I reckon he's, if I was a coach, I'd put him at 14. Now, I don't think they'll do this, but I just think Smith can cover the halves. He can cover hooker, and he's so fast, and I think he could really change momentum if they're failing in the first half, if they're falling behind. Crossland, I think, at 9. He's played 9 for the Kiwis a fair few times now. I think he's really solid in the number 9 jersey. But yeah, that's what I'd do, but I don't think they'll go that direction. And fuck would I know? I'm not in the Newcastle camp, but I love having an opinion on rugby league, so fuck it. The Dragons ended up winning that game 28 points to 18. So that is the preseason trial wrap up. It was great to see football back, and at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many points are scored in trials. In my opinion, it doesn't matter about if you win or lose, if you're a coach or if you're a fan watching. But what you want to see is this young talent come through. You want to see players gain confidence from trials, and I don't just see it as, oh well, fuck it, it's just a trial. Well, I think there's a little bit more to it than just a preseason trial. One, it's being televised now, so there is probably extra pressure on the players knowing how many people are now watching them play on TV. TV live on Fox League. But I tell you what, it was absolutely fantastic to see the football back. That is the pre-season trial recap over the weekend. This is the Rugby League Forecast podcast. I'm hoping you're enjoying the podcast. Please subscribe on the YouTube channel and on Spotify if you haven't done so. Follow on Spotify if you haven't done so already. All right, that'll do us. Cheers, guys.